So welcome back to Node.js class, and this is actually like our very beginning on understanding Node.js. And I want us to take this step in making sure that we get Node.js, or we get to understand Node.js at its simplicity and in a more flexible way. And also trying to make sure that we put things in a more detailed and more understandable way. So the first question that comes into one is, what is Node.js? So if you look at from our discussion here, or from our display, it's actually Node.js. And I want us to probably briefly look at what we're going to talk about this, because the most important aspect of understanding a subject is actually to go through its introduction. And not only the introduction, but to understand the simpler concepts, or the concepts that makes that particular language. So for this scenario, we are talking about the Node.js. And these are some of the things that I want us to discuss. And if you look at the first one, we want to understand about Node.js introduction. Briefly, we want to also talk about the Node.js background information, some of the key features of Node.js, how does Node.js works, some of the use cases in Node.js, what are some of the examples, probably going to write a simple code. And then we also try to talk about summary or Node.js summary. That means we're going to discuss or talk about Node.js and overall. And then from there, we're going to get into a more practical point just to understand some few concepts of Node.js. So we are going to understand understanding its implementation. And through understanding its implementation, we are going to discuss around 4 or 5 things. First, we're going to do creation of a server. We will also end up talking about how you can use Node.js to write a file, or how Node.js can write a file, can read a file, can create a directory, can delete a file or directory. And then from there, we're going to go into more advanced part of Node.js. But just remember that understanding Node.js is a very important point, because it's actually a server. So I want us to start from the introduction part, that we are talking about understanding Node.js from its perspective. So number one, before we discuss this, we're going to use the VS Code as part of our text editor. So I'm going to create a folder somewhere. And through this, I'm going to create a folder here in videos. And from here, I'm going just to have a folder, and then we can call it understanding. Let's say Node 2024. Now, this is actually our project folder, and using my text editor, you can use any other editor. You don't need to fix yourself in one single editor, but make sure that whenever you're using a text editor, just use one which you're most comfortable with. So I'll go to File, and then I will open a folder, and then go to the videos, and then I'll come and look for Node 2024. That is our project folder. So since we have this, we're going to have like one file. Let me call it index.html. And then from this point, we're going to have another one. Let me call it server.js, a JS file. Yes. So before we write any code related to JS or any code related to HTML, I want us just to discuss some of these things. For example, we can talk about what is Node. What is Node.js? What is Node.js? So through this, it's more of an explanation. I may not be able to write most of the things, but I'll try and explain. So you'll find that when you talk about Node.js, first is an open source. This is exactly what you need to understand. We can talk about is an open source, probably cross-platform, let's say cross-platform because it can be accessed, then runtime environment. So in other words, you can also talk of is an open server environment or is an open source cross-platform runtime environment that executes JavaScript code outside of a web browser, outside of a web browser, outside of our browser. So this is actually the onset of you understanding what Node.js. Now, when we talk about is an open source, cross-platform, runtime environment that executes JavaScript code outside of a web browser. Now, this means you can use JavaScript to build server-side applications. So this means that, this means you can use JavaScript to create what we call the server-side applications, the server-side applications. So these are applications that are more in line to the server or tuned to a server. So this is actually what it means. Now, by us having this brief explanation and what it means, remember we have JavaScript. So one thing that you need to understand about Node.js is that it's coming from a JavaScript because JS, of course, is JavaScript. So it has actually a runtime environment that can allow you to execute JavaScript codes outside a web browser. Now, some of the key points that you need to take note here is that Node.js, apart from highlighting Node.js, based on the definition and based on the explanation given, Node.js also allows us to use JavaScript on the server side, which of course is in line to what we've explained, making it possible to use a single programming language for both client side and server side code. So if you remember, at some point, you might be prompted to have a client-side application or a client application. This client application is there to access or to work hand in hand with the server application. So you'll find that we have what you call the client-server relationship. So the server side is being brought about by the Node.js. But of course, through a programming language, it's possible for you to have what you call the client side and the server side coding. Now, that is about the Node.js. So this question asks or answers this question: why Node? What is Node.js? Now, another question which is very important is why Node? Why Node.js? Why Node.js? Now, based on the traditional use, you see, JavaScript was originally used only in web browsers. JavaScript was originally used only in web browsers to create what you call interactive web pages. Because after going through the HTML, CSS, which HTML gives you the structure of a web page, the CSS actually gives the styling part of it. Those two technologies will not actually make that web page more interactive. So the only way to make that web page interactive is to involve or to bring what you call a JavaScript. So JavaScript was originally used, that is based on the its traditional usage, was actually only used in web browsers to create interactive web pages. But based on the innovation, there comes what you call the Node.js. So this Node.js actually was created, is it in 2019? Not 2019, but 2009 by somebody called Ryan. And this actually broke the limitation by enabling now the traditional usage of JavaScript from only, from only being used in ensuring that the web browsers are interactive, but it went beyond to an extent where you can use JavaScript to run the server or JavaScript to run on the servers. So this was actually like an advanced invention why Node.js came into play. Now, some of the benefits as to why Node.js is that Node.js unifies the development process and language, allowing developers to write both front-end and back-end code in JavaScript. So this means that apart from, like talking about why Node.js, you'll find that JavaScript, let's say, was originally used only in web pages to create interactive web pages. Yeah. And then, of course, there was an innovation. Let's say through this guy called Ryan. This is 2009. Yes. Ryan actually broke this limitation. So broke this limitation, yeah, by enabling JavaScript to run on the server. Yeah. So the most important thing here now is what was the benefit apart from being enabled to run JavaScript or to enable JavaScript to run on the server, that is through Node.js. This actually came as a unification, or it came as a way to unify the development process and languages, which of course allow developers to write both front-end and back-end code in JavaScript. So it means now that we're able to use Node.js to write both the front-end part of our application and of course with the back-end part of the application. Now, what are the key features? What are the key features of Node? So what are the key features you need also to take note of? So some of the key features is that, number one, Node.js has what you call event-driven architecture. It has what you call the event-driven architecture. So event-driven architecture means that Node.js operates on an event-driven model. Now, what do we mean by this event-driven model? This means that it uses events to trigger actions and handles input-output operations efficiently. So we have the issue of the trigger actions that usually happens, and we also have the issue of handling the input-output operations. So its architecture is event-driven. The architecture is event-driven. Now, I may not be able to talk about a lot, but let me talk about this, what you call the NPM. This is actually what you call Node Package Manager. So Node Package Manager, this is more of a library. NPM is more of a library, and this library actually provides, let's say, a vast library. Or we talk about a package, NPM, because a package, then it contains a series of libraries. So we can talk about NPM, which is actually a package, and this package provides a vast library of reusable packages and modules, making it easy to add functionality to Node.js applications. And then probably the last one on the list I can talk about is the JavaScript programming language. It's actually one of the features. So when it comes to the JavaScript programming language as part of the key features, Node.js actually uses JavaScript for both client-side and server-side development. And this actually simplifies the development process. So just to know that these are the key features that makes up Node.js. But of course, we have a lot. We have others, for example, the non-blocking input-output, and so many other things to understand. So now, probably the other side is, how does Node.js, how does it work? So we talk about how it works. How it works. So you'll find now that when you talk about Node.js, its applicability, you'll find that when it comes to Node.js, Node.js actually works in two, let's say, two ways. One is the event loop. And so probably you look into, like, we have what you call the event loop. And another one, probably we can talk about its efficiency. So when you talk about event loop, actually Node.js uses what you call a single threaded. It uses what you call, let's say Node.js uses a single threaded event loop. Now this one to handle asynchronous operations. Now, so this means that asynchronous operations, we have a single threaded event loop. Now, this means the event loop actually allows Node.js to manage numerous client requests without creating a new thread for each one. So you see that at some point you might have like a single thread or have multiple threads in a particular situation. But in this scenario, Node.js actually uses a single thread to do what? To manage numerous client requests without creating a new thread for each. If, for example, you've done an application using Node.js, and probably this application is prone to clients accessing in and out, or it has huge I/O or input-output operations, then we don't need to have like multiple threads for each client request. Then this scenario means that Node.js has only a single threaded event loop, which handles asynchronous operations. And when you talk about asynchronous operations, it's actually numerous or multiple or more client requests that are coming in, and these client requests will be handled at the same time, just because we have that simple threaded. Now, when it comes to the efficiency, it's actually because of, let's say, real-time applications. This, of course, is based on the synchronous operations. So because of the single-threaded event loop, that is when we'll also be able to view its efficiency. And now coming to probably the last one. The last one to talk about are the use cases. So when it comes to the use cases, you will find now that it's more of saying, where are these? Like, how can we apply, or where can we apply this Node.js? So, for example, Node.js is applicable in web applications. That is point number one. And when it is applied on, when you talk of applied in web applications, or one of its use cases is on web applications, it means that this means that Node.js is commonly used to build scalable, high-performance web applications. It's used to build scalable, high-performance web applications. So it is actually the best or one good point if at all you want to develop an application or a web application. So one choice is actually to go through using Node.js. Now, another important thing or its use case is actually the APIs. And for this scenario, we will come and talk about the APIs. So what does API? I know it's an initial, but what is an API? So an API is actually an abbreviated word which stands for Application Programming Interface. And it's ideal for creating one of the APIs, like Node.js is ideal for creating one of the APIs, which is actually called the RESTful APIs, which are essential for mobile and web applications to communicate with servers. So the easiest way for mobile and web applications to communicate with the servers is actually through the creation of these APIs. So through Node.js, you can create or you can come up with these efficient APIs. So that is one interesting area we will talk about. Now, another way or another point where we can use case of Node.js is real-time application. Real-time applications. Remember, we are talking about the applications. Real-time applications. So real-time applications, these are applications like chat systems, online gaming, live updates. All these actually benefits from Node.js. So apart from the web applications, the APIs, we also have what you call the real-time applications, and so many other things. We also have what you call the microservices, where Node.js supports microservices architectures, and it's so good to also take note of that. So the use case is actually, it's actually huge because it's one important thing. If you want to make an application more dynamic, more, let's say, client server thing, then you can actually go through or just try and understand the use cases of Node.js. So this means that when it comes to the simple examples, so when it comes to the simple examples, and probably for this scenario, remember we have web applications. We can talk about the APIs. For this scenario, we will talk about what's called the RESTful API. It's one of a good platform. We also have real-time applications. Yeah, so these are some of the use cases. But again, the most important thing, you see, we've gone through some of the theoretical part, but you see, the most important thing is to have the concept, just understand the concept. So because it's based on the practicality part of it, I want us to do now to do more of a summary, although Summary means that we have to go through, just to mention, just to go through introduction, background information, key features, how it works, use cases. But with the simple examples, I'm going to now bring that in line to understanding implementation. So before we create a server, we want first to make sure that we get to know like this simple example. So let's just start with a simple example. So for now, let me just get rid of everything here. And now we have like two files, and these two files, one is an index, HTML file. The other one is a server, or is a JavaScript file. So when it comes to the index, I will just do generate, and then I will try and do the script. So there, I'll just do the script here. And then here, I'll do the source and then talk about the server.js. Now, this is actually the common way, like how you can link a JavaScript file from the index.html file or from an HTML file. So it means that anytime I come and write like a word here, document.site, and then talk about booking, let's see. So we have the easiest way, like wherever you are creating this, you have to run like that, open with live server, and automatically if it is there, let me just allow, and you can see we have booking there. Now, this is JavaScript. This is how to run JavaScript. But now I want to make sure that we get to understand this concept, server.js. So with server.js, because it's going to be a server, we want to understand. And look at this. Whenever I run to this, you look at the, okay, let me just run like this, open with live server. By default, you can see that we have this link, 5501. So we have 5501. So this is actually a code 501. So this is actually a port number. This is what we call a port number. And then you see, we have what you call the localhost. So my localhost is actually 127.0.0.1. So we have this port number here. So coming towards this point, like that. So this is my port number, and this is my localhost, 127.0.0.1, and then 55.0.0.1. So if you look at it, we have this 55.0.1. So by default, this is the port, especially that that my text editor is actually using to execute this. So this is, in essence, is a server. It's a server. So if you look at our objective here is, how do we create a server? That is what we want to understand. How do we create a server? So we want to create a server, for example, our localhost. We will have like, yes, we're going to use the 0.0.1. And then our port number, we are going to employ a different port number. So we want this to use, let's say around, let me use like that 500. This is going to be our port number. By default, it's using this. Now, when we come to this part, for you to execute a server, you're supposed to go to the terminal, open the terminal, and then let's run node. First of all, you need to confirm whether node is there. So you can't just do node-p. So you have to download it from the site, install it normally, and then come back to this terminal and then write node-v for version. It will give you this. So this means that you are ready now to do what? To use node. So the first thing is, I want to do like node then server.js because I'm running what? I'm running this. So if I press enter, look at the error that is given me. I may not be able to execute. I may not be able to execute this, but I need to have a what? I need to have a server in place. So for me to capture this, and let me get rid, remember we have this information here. Let me get rid of this part. I want us to create a server. So creating a server, this server is going to use this, is actually going to use this. Is going to use this. And number one is that we need to do what we call the const. Const, remember in JavaScript, is one way of declaring a variable. And I am going to have const, and then let me have HTTP because we want to run our server. So, and of course, our server is going to run on a browser, or for it to display some content, it's supposed to be displayed on a server. Then I'll do require. And then into brackets, we have HTTP. So this is one way. So this is actually, HTTP is a module. It's more of a file system. So it's supposed to be used here. Now, number two is, apart from declaring this, you need to declare the host name. Host name is, I'm going to have it as 127.0.0.1. And then we're going to have the port. This port is going to be 3,500. That is our port. So we want our server to use this particular port, not 5501, like this one on the right bottom or bottom right. From here, we want now to create the server. So this is actually how we can test the server. If you want to test the server code is coming here. So I will do a const, and then talk of server equals to HTTP. Now we are using what? We are using this module, HTTP. Dot create server into bracket. We will have a function. So Now we have this, the function. So there are two things in Node, because in a server, you see, you can request, this should be like a request and this should be a response. So you have rec for request and then res for response. Then from this point, you're supposed to put a curly brace and then we're going to specify. So one, we want to get a response, and the response based on the status code is going to be, I'm giving a status code of 200. Now, this is status code 200 means when your code is okay, then it's 200. This is similar to, it is actually similar to like 404, 504. So we have the status code 200, and then we have like res again, dot. I want to set header. And then from here, we want to know, like, we have content. So the content that is going to be displayed, so content type, full colon. We have, so we can have txt, we have plain text. So I just want to have a plain text. From there, I'm going to have like another response coming from the server. And then this one, I'm going to talk of end. So this is exactly what I want us to display. So for example, we can talk about Kenya, a beautiful country. Kenya, a beautiful country. And from there, you need to put like that end there, and then we do like that. So based on this, then come down there, I'll just close. So instead of full column here, it should be like that. So you have to pay attention to the smaller details. You have to pay attention to the smaller details. So this is actually going to be tested. If everything is okay, if our server is okay, then 200 is going to mean as part of status code for okay. Then the content is going to be displayed as a plain text, and then this is the text that is going to be displayed. Now, coming downward, how do we want the server to respond? So you will come down here, talk about the server, dot listen into bracket. It will listen to the port. It will capture the host name because we want it to listen to port 3500. The host name is 127.0.0.1. And then we need to have the function here. So what could be the function? So I'll have something like that. So I want it to display. So it will console.log because it's going to be displayed on the console. And then I'm going to define, just to customize a message here. You need to customize a message, like server is running at, let's say HTTP, like that. And then just do class host name plus host name. So there are two things there. There's host name and there's port. Host name and port. So host name plus, then I'll do like that, and then plus port, and then plus like that, and then you just leave it like that. So this means that I have successfully managed to complete writing the test and code for my own server. And now it's time for me to test my server. So this is the code. If at all you want to create your server, especially when you're going to define your own port, you want to use the host name, this is how you do it. Now, this time around, you will have node, and then the name of the file, which is server.js, and press enter. Now, this is the message. Server is running at HTTP 3500. So I'm going to use this port number. So when I come to this, I will just use 127.0.0.1. 1, which is equals to writing 127.0.0.1, which is equals to writing localhost, and then our port is 3,500. So press enter, and let's see what is happening. So I want us to, so I'm going to have 127.0, and here I don't want to have any file. So we want to get this content. ABC 3,500. Okay, we have like localhost 3,500. Okay, it's downloading some files, you know. And I want to be, let's talk, instead of plain, let's do like HTML. And then reload it again, go to terminal, like that. Let's do node, and then server. 3,500. Okay, it's downloading some files. Let me change this to plain. Okay, okay. So you can see the area, it's supposed, here we have an issue. Instead of text, I've given txt. So let's go again, and then do node, then we'll add server. If I press enter, now we have a little small issue somewhere here. So there's an error, an handle error event. So the content type is text plain. Kenya is a beautiful country. So we have break request. Okay, so all of them are record. Can we just do hi, then bracket n. So it's just a plain text. So address already in 127. Now let me change this to 3,000. Let me change the port to 3,000. And then restart my server. So I've changed the port to 3,000. Let's see what happens. Just come and do node server. So it's giving me 3,000 now. So if I go to this part and use 3,000, now you can see that I have I. So there's a range of these ports. So probably I've gone beyond. If I do, now if I change here, like beautiful country, then change this to, let's say, 3,001. I've changed the port, and I want to restart the server. Go to file, terminal, new terminal. If you do node, then server, and press enter, it's giving you 3,000. So when you come back here and change that and press enter, then it should give you beautiful country. But remember, this is just to test the server. So how do we display some contents coming to this? Especially if I have my code here. How do I test this? So I want you to, first of all, go through this, and then probably in our next episode, we're going to continue from this point. So this is actually a code that you can test your server. You can create your own server. So from there, see you in the next episode. Thank you.